Jerry's been through a lot thanks to the IB. All his seniors were telling him that he'll sacrifice sleep and social life, hopefully in exchange for some diploma. He heeded their warning, going through the school year in complete paranoia, lost in fear, and he did end up losing sleep and social life, and he was stressed, and he got rejected from his deep university, and he barely passed. He should have been paid handsomely for his hard work. He earned the IB diploma, but the results did not show. Bjorn has built himself up from the ground ever since he started with the IB diploma. The curriculum was tough, but he was tougher. He hardened himself through all the trials, that is his TOKs, his EEs, his IAs, his 4HLs, and his 2SLs. Nothing was bringing him down. If more than anything, he sees it all as one big game, and he's the main character. And what does the main character do? He wins the game. So with that being said, my name is Joaquin Revello. I got a perfect 45 in the IB diploma a few years ago, and I'm currently a student at the UPenn Wharton dual degree engineering program. Let's get right into today's video. The mindset shift is that I stopped looking at the work I needed to do as work, and instead I saw it as an opportunity for me to win. I saw it as an opportunity for me to play this game known as the IB diploma. All right, you need to understand that fundamentally school is a game. All right, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It is a game, and I want you to approach it the same way you would approach a video game. Try to win. So how exactly do you win the IB diploma? First of all, you can get a perfect 45 in the IB. I think that's the most obvious way, but there's a second way, and this is basically how I approached it. That once I approached it from this method, not only did I get that perfect 45, but I also was able to do it with ease. I got into my top university here at the Wharton program. I also got all these extracurriculars. I built this hybrid rocket engine, had these businesses. Long story short, the way I approached the IB and everything I did in high school was from this perspective of trying to become the strongest, most competent, most able person humanly possible. In other words, I went into high school and into the IB, and essentially I learned this a few months into my first year into IB DP1. I went into the rest of the IB diploma program with the intention of becoming the strongest person, with the intention of building my ideal character, with the intention of becoming the best version of myself. And I'm telling you right now, when you approach the IB from that angle, when you approach the IB of doing it, not necessarily to only get into your top university, although that is important, but you do it from the perspective of truly trying to become the best version of yourself. I'm telling you right now, it completely changed the way you approach the work that you're doing. So what I want you to do is, if you haven't done this already, take 5 minutes writing down exactly what the best version of yourself is. All right. And you can click off this YouTube video, go somewhere else and forget about this, or you can just sit down, pause the video right now and do it. And I'm telling you right now, this is one of the most valuable exercises you'll do. It's a very high quality use of 5 minutes. Why? Because it develops clarity. And when there's clarity, as Brendan Burchard showed in his high performance research that he did, when there's clarity, it is very easy to understand exactly what to do. When you know exactly what to do, it becomes very easy to win. So I want you to ask yourself, what does my ideal person look like? How would they act? How would they talk? What skills would they have? What type of belief systems would they be thinking? How would they be talking to themselves? What type of things would they achieve? What would they become as an individual? Write those things down, get as clear and concrete as you possibly can with as many details, right? It might take you 5 minutes, might take you 10, might take you 15. I did this on a Sunday when I meditated for a few hours. It changed my life because I knew exactly the type of person I need to become. Now, it's very likely that that type of person that you need to become is very competent. They're probably strong. They probably have discipline. They probably have achieved very extraordinary things. They probably have this mosaic of different skills that they can apply in any different situation. Essentially, that person is probably just a stud, right? Point blank period. They're probably just competent at almost anything. That's good. So understand that if you ultimately want to become that type of individual who's well-spoken, who's competent, who's articulate, you need to understand that those types of people are built, right? Nobody is born that way. Nobody is born confident, fit, competent, in the top university, skillful. Nobody's born that way. Everybody is built in order for you to reach that state. So ask yourself, would sitting down and doing the homework right now and grinding as productive as possible in a state of flow, working on my highest leverage priorities, would that get me closer to becoming that type of individual? Or would going and watching TikTok and doing all this crap on the side, would that help me become the best version of myself? And it was this shift right here that just made it so easy for me to do difficult work. Because now the difficult work itself, you need to understand that difficult work builds your character. The fact that you're doing something challenging shows that you're building the experience, you're building the skills that you need to become a stronger person. That's how I approached literally all the homework I did with the IB. I approached it with this intention that even though it's difficult, I know that the person I'm going to become by the end of that will be much closer to the ideal version of myself. You need to also understand that even if you don't get the results you want, maybe you don't get that 45, maybe you don't get into your top university, hopefully you do, but maybe you don't. Even if that doesn't happen, the person you are by the end of that is in a much, much better spot than if you simply didn't do the tasks at all. In other words, you're that much closer to becoming the best version of yourself. You're that much stronger, you're that much more competent, that much more well-spoken, more articulate, however you want to express it. You're so much closer to becoming that individual that even if the results don't matter, you did the work not necessarily for the outcome, but instead for the person you became. This is why I love doing difficult things. This is why I love going to the gym, simply because it makes me mentally stronger. This is why I just love the actual process of work itself. And this is something I'm slowly starting to experience more like the older I get. And granted, I'm still pretty young. There's still a lot of lessons left for me to learn. But one of the things that in high school compared to now, I don't appreciate as much is simply the fact of doing difficult work. The fact that it's hard, the fact that the work itself needs to get done, and then doing that with the state of excellence brings like one of the best days of my life are the days where I'm able to do difficult work with excellence. Because I know that when I do difficult work with excellence, that builds me up into a stronger individual. So the next time you want to do an IB test, next time you want to do a practice exam, essay, whatever, get into your top university, all this type of stuff that you have to do, approach it from the state of becoming stronger. Now, there's a few tactics that you can employ, and I want to give you some pieces of action point apart from the actual mindset shift itself. So essentially for action point number one, what I want you to do is I want you to go back, rewatch this video. That way you can get this line of thinking of approaching work simply because it's hard and doing it anyways because you know it's going to get you stronger. Approaching that line of thinking and getting that stuck into your head. Because once you approach everything you do from that perspective, not only does it become 100 times easier, but there's actually a reason why you're doing it. And I think enough students don't lack a reason. They're kind of just fumbling in the dark. They don't know why they're doing things. And most of the results they get, frankly, are just months into the future, right? If you do a math question today, or you do a math test right now, or you do this studying or whatever you want to do, the actual results you're going to get from what you're doing won't be seen until weeks, if not months into the future. Which leads to point number two, which is to gamify school. All right, how can we gamify this entire IB process? Because that's literally what I did. All right, the first strategy I suggest is known as the stopwatch strategy. When I was 15 years old, I carried around this stopwatch right here. I actually carried around a yellow one. Hopefully you can see that on screen right now. And I have the yellow one somewhere here in my college dorm. All right, so it's somewhere here. I still have the exact same one that I had 5 years ago or 6 years ago now. Long story short, essentially what I did is I carried around this stopwatch and everybody knew me as this soccer stopwatch guy. Even my grade 8 teacher, I still remember Mr. Bortz, if you're watching this. Mr. Bortz, grade 8 teacher of guitar. He would see me with the stopwatch and he would say, hey, the stopwatch is back. That was actually very funny. But I became known as this stopwatch type of guy. I'd walk around with this stopwatch. Long story short, I had this stopwatch. What I did is I tracked the amount of time I spent in focused flow working on my number one priority. In other words, I identified the most important thing I have to do, which was just doing as many past paper questions as humanly possible. And then I got my stopwatch and I just did them as much as humanly possible. All right. And I made a mistake because I didn't start to do this at scale until my grade 11 year. I wish I did it earlier, but I did a little bit in grade 9, a little bit in grade 8. Didn't really work for me. I don't know why, but I did it again in grade 11. Nailed down, went full on in with this, changed my life. All right, that's how I went from level 4 in math to a level 7 just by simply applying this strategy right here. Essentially what you do is you carry around a stopwatch every single second that you spend in a state of flow on your most important task, which for me was at the time just doing as many past paper questions with the constraint minimization framework, which I talked about earlier, which is identifying the constraint and then destroying it, right? Minimizing it down. Talk about that in the I broke the IB math video. Hopefully it should be right here. Long story short, what you want to do is you want to go through as many past paper questions as possible, time this, and then every single day you want to go back and try to beat your score. Try to beat the amount of questions you do, the amount of time you spend working, the whatever metric you want to use. You need to identify some metric that you can beat on a consistent basis. Now, you can make this twice as fun by inviting a friend, right? Hopefully there's a high achieving friend at your school who also wants to get into a top university. Go up to them, each get a stopwatch, 2 stopwatches is better than 1. And then compete against each other, right? The person who gets the most amount of time, whoever gets the most amount of points of the stopwatch wins a reward, or even like the person who fails gets a consequence. Like maybe someone comes and throws eggs at them, or they have to go to, I remember hearing some student who wanted to go to the talent show and sing some embarrassing song. Long story short, there's an actual consequence, there's an actual reward. Choose which one you want to do. I think the consequence is actually a little more funny, but you want to choose a consequence, a reward, get out your stopwatch, and then compete. All right, that's number 1. Number 2, if you don't like the stopwatch, you can use some other way to track. All right, the point here is you want to track, you want to make it very clear what the scoreboard is. And here's the kicker. If you can make what you track about the actual difficulty of the work itself, the actual me sitting down and doing states of flow, that's why I love the stopwatch so much, because it focuses on that key point of the productivity process, right? Sitting down and doing focused work on your most high leverage, most important priority. If you're able to identify that as the objective, all of a sudden the difficult work that you don't want to do becomes a stepping stone towards the type of person you want to become, a stepping stone towards the type of life you want to build, right? And this is also why I'm slowly starting to see, and I actually tweeted this recently, but I'm slowly starting to gain an appreciation towards a liberal arts education, right? My view even just a few months ago was, yeah, I don't like liberal arts. I think a fully technical school is much better. It's much more useful. I'm slowly starting to realize that that's actually not completely correct. I think that one of the biggest utilities of the IB compared to many other programs in high school is just the sheer quantity of essays that we need to write. I think that's very powerful. And this is just not communicated in the right way, because when I was in the IB, I think it just sucked. Like, I had to do all these essays, all this work, all this extra stuff. It was just kind of frustrating, but I'm slowly starting to realize the utility in this. And I'm actually very thankful that I did all those essays, because again, this comes back to the point I was mentioning earlier, but it built me into that type of person I actually want to become. I know that my ideal version of myself is articulate. My ideal version of myself is well-read. My ideal version with myself can effectively communicate precisely what he wants to say. That's my ideal version of myself. Now, writing essays allows you to do exactly that. It trains that muscle of being able to concisely communicate exactly the message I want to get across. And I didn't realize that until very recently, where the utility of that liberal arts education, that focus on essays, has that leverage, that ability to influence the type of person I want to become. And I think it's really just a tragedy that this hasn't been communicated clearly at all to anybody in my generation, because I didn't think about it at all until I meditated and I just wrote this stuff down and I read all these books. I mean, I've been reading this one right here by The History and the Decline of the Fall of the Roman Empire. I'm starting to actually really love literature. I'm starting to really love all these historical books. I have this book right here by Meditations, Marcus Aurelius. I'm really starting to love these books because they explore the ideas of not only what it means to be human, but also how to effectively communicate that desire of what it means to be human. I'm really starting to love that. And the reason why I love that so much is because it gets me closer to being a more effective articulator, which is the ideal person I want to become. So to wrap this all, bring this all full circle, what I want you to do is I want you to gamify the IB diploma. I want you to look at the work you're doing as, sure, it's difficult. Like, you can call it hard work. I think you can call it difficult work, or you can also call it a necessary step towards becoming that ideal version of yourself. And you can look at everything that you do, whether that's doing mathematics or writing essays, as we just showed, liberal arts education, as a stepping stone towards yourself becoming more articulate, towards yourself becoming stronger with mathematics, right? Developing that rational brain, and ultimately a stepping stone towards yourself becoming a stronger, more capable, more confident, more successful individual in every single facet of your life, okay? That's how I view the IB. That's how I think you should view it as well. Or really just not even the IB, all right? I say the IB because that's the niche I talk to. That's what I went through. But you can look at this in literally any line of work that you're doing, whether it's the IB, whether it's university admissions, whether it's the university classes themselves that I'm in right now, viewing the hard work as the necessary process that you need to go through, and the challenge itself as a stepping stone that enables you to become that ideal version of yourself. That's how you should view all this challenge. It makes the entire thing much more enjoyable, much easier, because you actually now have a clarity of where you're going. And believe me, the person you're going to become, the things you're going to know, the skill sets you're going to have will shock you to this day on what you can accomplish, right? And it shocked myself as to the person I'm now becoming with my Grizzly business, with the YouTube channel, with now at UPenn Wharton, all these contacts, all these classes I'm taking, all these books I'm reading. It will shock you, all right? That I can 100% promise you. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions at all, please leave them into the comment section down below. And until next time, stay grizzly, everybody. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.